There's three ways to lower the C8 Corvette. You have the factory option Z51 coilovers, which have a threaded shock body. You can spin these spinners and raise and lower the spring 0.7 of an inch. If that's not enough for you, you can find yourself some lowering springs, either from Eibach or Paragon sells a set. There might be some others out there. I might be forgetting some. That's okay. They're nothing less than what you can get. For this build, we chose to go with Eibach. They've been around a long time and they're well trusted. I'm not going to worry about the struts blowing out. For the rears, you're going to want to open the rear hatch, put it pretty high up in the air, and then for the upper strut in the rear of the car, there's three 13mm nuts. You're going to want to remove those, and then everything else we're going to do is down inside the fender well. You're going to remove these four 15mm bolts. As you can see in the front side of the control arm, you have to remove this fender liner, and there's an aluminum block here. The aluminum block is held in by two 10mm bolts. You're going to have to remove those, set the block to the side to access that inner bolt. When you reassemble, this is fairly difficult, and some people cross-thread them in, so just be very careful. Make sure you get the bolts lined up. It's kind of frustrating. You could do it, get it in there, use a second jack to support the lower control. The lower strut bolt and nut is a 21mm on both sides. It also has the sway bar end link attached to it, so remove that, get that out of the way, pull the control arm out, and pull the strut out and towards the back of the car. Once you have it out, you can put it on the spring compressor, swap your factory springs for the Eibachs. Alright, so for the front struts, you pull the plastic underneath the front, pull the side pieces, and you pull this bit, get it out of your way, and then you have the top of the strut towers here. There's three 13mm nuts on top of the studs, on top of the factory strut. So you pull those three 13mm bolts, and then come on down here. You have four 15mm bolts connecting the upper control arm to the chassis. You're going to pull those four 15mm bolts. You do not need to disconnect the upper ball joint on here, but when you remove the three 13mm nuts on top of the strut, and you remove the 21mm nut and bolt on the lower side of the strut, you should be able to pull the control arm out, slide the strut out the front or back side. So it makes it 10 times easier if on the passenger side you have the steering wheel turned all the way to the right while you're working on it, and then for the driver's side you have the steering wheel turned all the way to the left. It just gives you some more room. That way you don't have to disconnect this upper ball joint. That's all it takes to lower the C8 Corvette. Check that out. It needs to settle a little bit, but we've closed some of that fender gap both on the front and rear. Looks 10 times better than it did before. Should ride about the same based on the advertised spring rates.